Hello everybody, and welcome back to Nancy Drew Mobile Mystery Shadow Ranch. We are on Chapter 3, and there are 3 things that Nancy and her friends can do. They can check out the cacti, they can see bones, or they can look for petroglyphs. And you can only do 2 of these 3 things in Chapter 3, unless you want to start over. So let's start off with the cacti. The trio heads down the driveway as the bright yellow western kingbirds chirp above them. Soon the girls find the path leading towards a distant peak. Up for some cantering, Nancy asks her cohorts, gathering her reins. You bet, Bess replies, scowling as her horse snatches a mouthful of stems off a passing bush. Bess sort of has like the fat horse who is always eating rather than, a really good horse. It's kind of funny. The horses quicken to an easy canter. Soon the ridge below the peak comes into view. They slow to a walk as they turn to head for it. The hillside is spiked with a large number of cigarros, the cactuses thingy, whatever. As they approach, the girls note that many of the tree-like cacti don't have arms. Instead, their tops end in strange cauliflower-like lumps. Wonder why they're deformed like that, George wonders. It's a mutation, Nancy replies. I don't think anyone knows for sure what causes it. How come that one's so short, Bess asks, as they ride past the saguaro, which is only 4 feet tall. Is that a mutation too? More likely it's just a young plant. Okay, let's hear that sound effect again. The taller they are, and the more arms they have, the older they are. Some cigarros have been around for 150 years. That one reminds me of Mr. Pilchuck, George announces, the calculus teacher, pointing at a cactus with a deeply ridged top flowing over to one side. Remember how his comb-over would kind of hop around his head whenever he solved an equation on the board? The girls chuckle at the uncanny resemblance, then start wandering among the cacti, thinking up strange names for them based on their strange, gnarled shapes. So now you can go see the bones or look for petroglyphs. And what I'm actually going to do is restart the chapter, just so I can show you something. Of course, that means I have to skip through all this, but don't worry. Let's go with Ace this time. And now I'm gonna look for bones in the watering hole. The trio heads away from the corral and straight into the desert. When they reach a long stretch of firm sand, their horses start to prance. The horses must be used to cantering here, Nancy observes. Fine by me, George grins, gathering her reins. The girls set off at an easy lope with Nancy in the lead. When they come to an arroyo, don't play in them, they're dangerous apparently. She raises her hand and slows to a stop. George pulls up behind her. Moments later, Bess arrives. Sorry, she sighs. This is the only horse I know that can graze and canter at the same time. I'm starting to think that Tex gave Bess the fat horse on purpose. They turn north and climb a ridge which eventually drops into a small canyon. At the far end is a wide, shallow depression in the ground. Animal bones of all shapes and sizes lie scattered around. Bleached white by the relentless sun. Looks like the water hole dried up on these poor critters before they could move on, George summarizes. Alright, let's hear that sound effect again. Not a very long sound effect. Bess's eyes gleam. Or maybe some low-life desperado poisoned it. The girls laugh at such an unlikely thought, then dismount and slowly meander through the bones, trying to identify the animals they once were. That's gotta be from a cow, right? George asks when they come across a horn lying on the ground. Or a unicorn, Bess suggests, only half joking. Either way, it's got souvenir written all over it, Nancy says. Nancy picks it up and puts it in her saddlebag. So what do we do now? Let's do the third thing, which is look for petroglyphs. Nancy and the cousins head back up the trail and make their way to a rocky ridge. Speaking of rocky things, Rocky Road ice cream is delicious. Ice cream. I could sure go for some ice cream because we're in the middle of the desert here. It's really, really hot right now. I'm just saying. As they follow the trail upwards, they are afforded wonderful vistas of Shadow Mountain and the ranch nestled at its foot. Oh, so I'm guessing Shadow Ranch is named after the mountain. I did not know that. Finally, the trail drops down into a valley strewn with large boulders. They ride on until Nancy pulls her horse to a stop. Looking around, she discovers that various shapes and figures have been etched into the surrounding boulders.
Weird symbols.
Oh my gosh! Look at all the petroglyphs. It's like we've wandered into a prehistoric art gallery. Who carved them? Bess wonders. Nobody knows. Nobody knows exactly when they were carved either, or why. What is that? Bess is pointing out a nearby carving. A petroglyph, dummy, George chides her good-naturedly. I mean, what's it supposed to be? It looks like a cockroach with a bad case of bed hair. They go from rock to rock, studying each carving. Some are clearly people, others resemble different animals. Some are primitive stick figures, others are more detailed. But each one is fascinating, and the girls spend almost an hour trying to determine what the images represent, and what kind of person created them. Okay, so at this point, we're going to run into something new. Now, no matter which place you go to second, this is going to happen. We're going to find bear grass, and we're going to find a cooler. So, you don't necessarily find this at the petroglyph place. It's just whichever place you go to second, this happens. As the trio ride away from the area, Bess's horse makes a beeline to a clump of bear grass. Bess's horse is still eating. Okay, so Bess's horse makes a beeline to a clump of bear grass and munches on the leaves. As she tries to maneuver the stubborn beast away, Bess spots a styrofoam cooler hidden beneath the grass. Hidden behind the grass. Ooh, Bess cries out, dismounting her horse. Looks like the ranch hands put out some refreshments for the guests. Awesome, George says. I could use a nice cold bottle of prickly pear soda. Bess opens up the cooler, screams, and runs back to her horse. What's the matter? Nancy asks. Bess just shakes her head. Nancy leans over the cooler and sees a frozen deer leg. Ick, George says. I don't think this was meant for us. I hope not, Nancy responds, but I bet it was intended for our feline visitor. The wildcat? George asks. Nancy nods. We should take this back to the ranch. On the trail, the girls explore different routes, making their way down gulches and through canyons. As they pass an old mine, Bess speaks up. Ooh, Lester told me about this place. He said it's full of quartz. Can we stop and take a look, can we, please? You know how I like shiny things. Okay, let's collect some quartz. This looks sort of like the cave in Nancy Drew, White Wolf of Icicle Creek. Just look for quartz, which is just shiny diamond-like stuff. And there we go. Yay, we found all the hidden objects, and as a reward, we get the hedgehog cactus collectible. As the girls exit the mine, Bess spots a small, squat hedgehog cactus. How cute, she exclaims. I think I'll make a hedgehog cactus quartz brooch. I can probably make some nice jewelry with these pieces. Can I remind you that quartz necklaces, rings, and other such items are not on my birthday list? George asks. Since you ask, no, you cannot, her cousin says, as she mounts Pal.